almost 2 years have passed since the reveal, or if you prefer the first look, of the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And likely, over 2 years will pass from that moment before we see it again. Why? As E3 2021 is taking place a few days later than E3 2019. Joking aside, they wait for more footage and some gameplay in what will become, no matter what, one of the longest gaps between two new The Legend of Zelda games has been tough. But somehow we have managed to soldier through it together, and after the drought, trailers, gameplay, and finally the game itself will be our rewards. However, what if I told you that there's one, or actually multiple ways, that the game could be shown before E3? And then I don't mean for a Nintendo Direct the day before digital E3 officially kicks off on June 12, but possibly a few weeks before the show. Well, then be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the Commonwealth Forum for more, and press that notification bell, and again for all notifications to not miss any of our upcoming Switch and Zelda videos. Now then, how do we get more of this before E3? Well, for one, Nintendo likes to have a spotlight of its own for Zelda, hence why they during E3 2016 dedicated their entire booth to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, with a little bit of Pokemon Sun and Moon on the side. Needless to say, Nintendo won E3 that year with one game and one demo, which is nearly unheard of. Physical E3 made this possible, but E3 2021 with a digital format with plenty of other presentations makes this feat impossible, as there is no way that Nintendo would want Zelda to just be a part of the show. No, it will likely take up a big chunk of a Nintendo E3 Direct. The return of the sequel to the best-selling Zelda game of all time, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, needs a proper stage and possibly even first taste of what awaits at E3 a few weeks afterwards. So now, let me present to you the Final Fantasy VII and Fallout 4 strategy, where you bring the hype up to 11 so that you will have the attention of the entire world when the time for the big presentation during E3 arrives. Bethesda has usually done this for a massive countdown livestream, building up viewership until they reveal the new game with a short teaser trailer ending with more at E3, and then dedicate a big part of the E3 presentation to that game. And let me tell you, the E3 2015 Fallout 4 demonstration was incredible. While Square Enix decided that their first Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer since 2015 would not be at E3 2019, but rather be a taste of things to come during the May 9th, 2019 PlayStation State of Play. A brief 1-minute trailer ending with more to come in June, and they totally kept that promise through the opening half of the E3 2019 Square Enix presentation. Both of the mentioned dual hype pre and at E3 formats could easily be replicated by Nintendo and the Zelda team, either individually through a live stream, a mini Nintendo Direct as part of a YouTube upload like they did with Age of Calamity last year, or even during a first look of the reported Switch Pro, all to generate hype for the true Battlefield. Digital E3 2021. Say, just like with Final Fantasy VII Remake's return after over 2 years of nothing, and just a few screenshots, giving us a 1 minute to 90 seconds trailer of the very beginning of the game with some gameplay here and there to make Breath of the Wild sequel trending again. Ending with AJ Numa on the screen and saying in English, more at E3. Boom. Breath of the Wild 2 is ready to dominate the digital expo weeks before the E3 weekend of June 12 to 15. Just think of this, a perfect way to commence the Zelda 35th anniversary before revealing the actual logo at E3. But what about Skyward Sword HD? Actually, it makes it all the better, as there you have another possibility to hide Breath of the Wild 2's return within the next Skyward Sword HD trailer, which ends by teasing its connection to Breath of the Wild and then its sequel beyond the few gameplay examples we saw in the February Nintendo Direct. In other words, generating hype for both during E3. Want to know the full story? Then play Skyward Sword in July before replaying Breath of the Wild right after while you wait for its sequel. Series producer Eiji Aonuma and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi's trilogy. Play it all during Zelda's 35th anniversary in 2021. Now that is next level marketing, making Skyward Sword HD mandatory before playing Breath of the Wild 2. I can't think of a better way to get people to buy and soldier through Skyward Sword HD than that. Then after this trailer, also say more to come at E3 for both, and dare do a dual presentation with both of the games equally present. Get the full payoff by playing our two most story-heavy Zelda games to date, where both have big dungeons and bosses waiting for you. A few words, a few seconds, and you have sold the gaming world on both during E3. But if Nintendo wants to completely dominate, they will make a Triforce E3 strike. Skyward Sword HD, Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, and Switch Pro. The last 3D Zelda to get a remake, the sequel to their best-selling Zelda game, and the new top model. Software combined with hardware always wins E3, and that is why a tease of the software before the show could be a perfect way to bring in the hardware during E3. Just like Square Enix did during the February 2021 State of Play, where they showed how much better Final Fantasy VII Remake runs on the PS5 while the game is still available on PS4. So say that Nintendo markets it the similar way. Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, best on Switch Pro XL, but still great on Switch and Switch Lite. The more we look at this and use Final Fantasy VII Remake and its marketing as an example, the more bringing back Breath of the Wild sequel before E3 to generate hype for it makes sense. Only that Nintendo, after teasing the software before E3, can also add hardware to the mix at E3, and then use the Treehouse livestreams after their presentation at E3 to demonstrate the superiority of a Switch Pro version, since these are details that the Zelda team are painfully aware of. 900p and struggling with maintaining 30 frames per second when docked to a TV was the reality when playing Breath of the Wild on the Switch up to this point, and close to 20 frames when walking through Korok Forest. With a more powerful top model, we could see 1080p with 60 frames per second, or even higher resolutions with stable 30 frames. Combined, these are selling points that Nintendo can highlight during E3, along with other technical refinements found in the first new Zelda that takes full advantage of the Nintendo Switch hardware, and in particular, its likely revised top model with Nvidia upgrades. This way, a trailer before E3, or if you prefer teaser, could mostly focus on story, with gameplay bits here and there, and where there are voiced lines, as the E3 2019 reveal trailer had none. Pretty much the same thing that Final Fantasy VII Remake did in their comeback trailer during the State of Play in 2019. And as we all know, the voice acting is here to stay after Age of Calamity went all the way with it through its movie worth of cutscenes. And after this, during E3, Nintendo can simply focus more on gameplay, as that is where you can demonstrate the difference between Switch Basic and Pro. Resolution, frame rate, detail on the TV, and on the crisper reported OLED display. This makes sense on so many levels, bringing up comparisons of the technical and gameplay improvements between Breath of the Wild and its sequel. Naturally, all of this, whether it is a standalone trailer or a combined trailer with Skyward Sword HD before E3, trailers and gameplay during E3, and in particular Zelda and Switch Pro combo at E3, depends fully on one criteria: that the game is coming out either holiday 2021 or in the first half of 2022, that is to say before E3 2022. Otherwise, it's likely that the big presentation and focus will happen next year, when E3 is likely going to be physical again. Since that is how the Fallout 4 and Final Fantasy VII Remake marketing campaigns worked. Give a small taste before E3, then put an entire show at E3, revealing Collector's Edition, as the games will be coming out by the end of this year or early next year. Simply put, if your game is coming out by the end of the year or early next year, capture the world's attention before the show, then rock it during the show, aka E3, where you go in depth and detail everything that you can detail from the early part of the game, aka what would have been the demo section if E3 was physical, plus a little beyond the cave that we saw in the reveal trailer, and possibly giving us a tease of how the open air of Hyrule has changed from Breath of the Wild. And there you have it, my take on how and what is required to see Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 again before E3, and to avoid an over 2-year-long gap since the reveal at E3 2019. But will Nintendo really go with this? I don't really know, but I would like to hear your thoughts about it. So write it down in the comments below and join the discussion in our Discord server. Link is on the screen and in the description. Oh, and totally press that like button and share this video to tell the YouTube algorithm to recommend this video to more people. And if you haven't already, then press that red button to subscribe to the Commonwealth Realm and press that notification bell, and again for all notifications to not miss any of our upcoming Switch and Zelda videos. Finally, a big thanks goes to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons who make these videos possible, and in particular to our royal producer Charles Shash. And to all of you, please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.